Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we have cracked open a truly just an exhaustive stack of articles, research papers, and literary analyses focused on modern fantasy. And our mission is, I think, really thrilling to analyze the foundations of power and influence in these complex stories, specifically through the lens of personality archetypes.
That's right. I mean, what this material has done, essentially, is take 28 of the most influential characters, the architects, the generals, the manipulators, and mapped their success or their failure onto these defined personality frameworks, those four-letter codes like ENTJ or ISTP. They're being used here almost like diagnostic tools to figure out what drives competence and, well, downfall.
Exactly. The big idea here is that these narratives are so much less about a simple good versus evil and far more about what kind of intelligence actually wins out. Is it that long-term architectural vision, or is it the quick, the intuitive read of a room? But before we jump into the characters, for anyone listening who isn't totally fluent in this framework, we should probably do a quick definition of terms.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
These codes really describe the architecture of the mind. And you should think of them as, like, functional lenses. The four letters, they just represent how a person gets their energy, extroversion or introversion, how they process information, so sensing or intuition,
Right.
how they make decisions, which is thinking or feeling, and then how they structure their life, judging or perceiving. Understanding that architecture is the shortcut we're looking for because the sources argue that success in this world is often a direct result of applying the correct mental function at exactly the correct time.
Fascinating. So to help you navigate this massive body of work, we've grouped the characters into four key categories: the pure strategic minds, the action-oriented executive, the pillars of duty, and finally, the principled visionaries. Let's jump straight in with the top tier of pure intellect, the architects. Okay, so let's unpack this. We're starting with the heavy hitters, the characters who command the realm through just sheer intellect and long-term planning. The ENTJs, the commanders, are often the ones setting the entire board. And the sources give us two phenomenal and really sharply contrasting examples: Tywin Lannister and Olenna Tyrell.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here, I mean, really fascinating, is the sheer difference in their application of that ENTJ structure. Tywin is described as the ultimate architect of order, focused exclusively on his long-term dynasty. His ENTJ preference for thinking and judging leads him to view people, even his own family, as just fungible resources.
Just pieces on the board.
Exactly. Pieces for structural stability. Yeah. We find this crucial argument that his masterful study of realpolitik really illustrates the total sacrifice of one's humanity for power.
Okay, but hold on. If that cold logic is the key to his power, why does his whole architecture ultimately fail? What did the sources say about that?
Well, that's the irony, isn't it? The sources are really clear on this. His power failed precisely because he saw all emotional complexity as a weakness. His inability to tolerate or even comprehend his own children's individuality was the actual mechanism of his downfall. He could build a fortress, but he couldn't govern the hearts inside it.
Wow, that makes the contrast with Olenna Tyrell, the Queen of Thorns, even more compelling then. She is just as much a commander, direct, determined, but her whole strategy is focused on the immediate prosperity and survival of her family.
Exactly. And the analysis highlights that her power, her very complex female power, flows entirely from her mind and her tongue, not from the battlefield. So they're both commanders, but one is fighting for this abstract eternal legacy, and the other is fighting for immediate family survival through just superior political maneuvering.
Right.
Now, if the ENTJs are the commanders, then the ENTPs are the debaters, the masters of rapid, witty adaptation and intellectual combat. And Tyrion Lannister
Of course.
is the perfect example. He's brilliant, he's irreverent, he uses wit as a shield against a world that hates him. His analytical mind just excels at decoding political intrigue. The sources say intellectual survival is as harrowing and vital as physical combat.
And that moral complexity is what keeps him so compelling, unlike, say, Peter Baelish, Littlefinger, who has that same ENTP intellectual firepower, but he serves only himself.
100%. He's cunning, he's opportunistic, and he thrives on exploiting political dynamics.
Yeah.
The analysis points out that he perfectly illustrates how that pure adaptable intelligence can serve, well, it can serve both progress and total destruction.
Right.
And we can't overlook the quiet strategists, the INTJs and INTPs who operate behind the scenes. Varys, the spider, is the INTP analytical, secretive, valuing knowledge to maintain stability. He shows that subtle influence and patience are often more powerful than armies.
I'm genuinely fascinated that the study categorizes Bran Stark as an INTJ, as a strategist, given his physical passivity. How do they define his type of action?
That's a great question. The study argues that as the three-eye raven, Bran represents the ultimate form of INTJ strategy. It's visionary. It's abstract. He perceives patterns beyond ordinary human understanding, dealing with what they call the burden of knowledge. His action isn't physical. It's the strategic non-action that maintains the stability of history itself. He sees the whole system.
So we've established that this abstract long-term thinking rules the great houses. It can build empires, but it's also prone to collapsing under the weight of human complexity. But what happens when that abstract strategy has to meet the sharp edge of immediate action? That brings us to the hands-on executives.
Precisely. We're shifting from characters dominated by intuition, the N, to those dominated by sensing, the S, and immediate execution. This group, they're the executives. They rely on structure, control, and tactical skill to enforce their will for better or much, much worse.
And here's where we meet the ESTJs, the executives, who are all about structure, efficiency, and strict control. Cersei Lannister is the commanding, pragmatic example. She enforces her vision through decisive action, all of it driven by this ruthless, protective loyalty to her children.
And you see the danger in that archetype when it's wielded without any wisdom. Joffrey Baratheon, also an ESTJ in these sources, exemplifies the extreme dangers of unchecked authority and just, impetuous cruelty. He's a cautionary tale of how that functional framework, which is designed for execution, can be absolutely disastrous when it's not moderated by conscience or competence.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Moving to the ESTPs, the action-driven entrepreneurs. We have Khal Drogo, who lives entirely in the moment. He rules through sheer physical prowess and this unyielding confidence. The analysis noted his anthropological depth, personifying this primal immediate force.
And yet, it's jarring to realize the study applies the same functional ESTP label to the monstrous Ramsay Bolton. He's presented as a distorted form, impulsive and just dominated by a need for extreme sensory stimulation. His intelligence is tactical, but he uses it to explore the darkest depths of human depravity, using psychological dominance for immediate power.
It's a powerful reminder that these archetypes are just tools, not moral compasses.
Not at all.
But the ESTP can also find deep redemption. Jaime Lannister, the skilled swordsman, starts as this arrogant, typical ESTP, bold, adaptable, but he evolves into reflection. He illustrates a character complexity forged in fire. He thrives under pressure, and he adapts his skills to survive and eventually redefine his honor.
And finally, in this action category, we have the ISTPs, the virtuosos. These are the characters who rely on practical skills and instinct above everything else. Arya Stark is the quintessential example. Independent, resourceful, focused. Her whole journey illustrates the immense power of agency and resilience, adapting her skills to just completely unpredictable environments.
And right alongside her is Senor Clegane, the Hound. Pragmatic, fearless, relying on instinct over ideology. The study of his arc explores morality, redemption, and survival. It really shows that resilience is forged through hardship, hidden beneath that rough, protective ISTP exterior. Let's shift gears completely now. Let's go to the archetypes who prioritize honor, tradition, and quiet service above personal glory. If the previous groups were defined by ambition or by action, these characters define the quiet courage and common decency that act as the unheralded anchors in a chaotic world. We're talking about the logisticians and the nurturers.
The ISTJs, the logisticians, are absolutely the anchors. They're defined by their methodical approach and deep loyalty. Eddard Stark is the prime, if tragic, example. His adherence to honor and the law governs his every action, even when it's politically costly.
Right, and his story is a clear warning about the limits of that virtue. He couldn't adapt his personal code to the external reality of the capital. But let's look at the crucial contrast. Davos Seaworth, who is also an ISTJ.
That contrast is exactly where the sources find their deepest insight. Davos is honest, he's pragmatic, guided by an unshakable sense of duty, but he's fundamentally the common man's voice. Unlike Ned, who adheres so rigidly to tradition, Davos's duty is pragmatic. It's centered on service to a functional ruler. The material emphasizes that his true nobility is found in common decency, proving the ISTJ framework succeeds when it's adaptable in its application of duty.
That distinction, idealistic duty versus pragmatic duty, is fantastic. And we also see this unwavering commitment in Brienne of Tarth. Her path is defined by honor and protection. She uses that structured, methodical approach, demonstrating that heroism is consistent and principled, often in the face of just constant mockery.
And Jorah Mormont, stoic and traditional, bound by a fierce code of loyalty to his queen, seeking redemption through service. All these characters function as essential support beams. They aren't seeking the throne, they're seeking to maintain the integrity of their world.
So if the ISTJs are the logisticians, the ISFJs are the nurturers, focused on dedication and care. Samwell Tarly is our perfect case study here. Loyal, sensitive, and his strength is rooted in knowledge and care. The analysis argues that the books redefine the genre by elevating the scholar and the underdog, proving that historical knowledge, meticulously gathered, is as powerful as any steel blade.
Absolutely. And Catelyn Stark embodies the devoted, protective ISFJ. Her choices are guided by this deep sense of responsibility and maternal concern. She represents the human cost of loyalty, navigating treacherous political waters solely through the lens of protecting her family. And that highlights how that protective instinct, while essential, can lead to huge blind spots when dealing with abstract political strategy. In our final functional category, we examine the characters driven by an inner moral compass or a quest for identity. These are often the ones who struggle the most, balancing their strong ideals, their feeling function, the F against a very harsh reality. These are the mystics, the mentors, and the adventurers.
And Jon Snow is the archetype of the INFJ, the mystic. He's principled, introspective, driven by a vision of justice that's way beyond personal ambition. He represents that struggle to lead with integrity, even when it means sacrificing his own desires or even his life.
Yeah, he illustrates the heavy cost of selflessness when that INFJ vision clashes with political necessity. But that INFJ vision isn't just limited to the battlefield. Look at Sansa Stark. She evolves from a naive girl into this shrewd, politically savvy leader, patient, insightful. Her strategic success comes from her INFJ ability to observe the thinking types we discussed earlier, integrate their strategic mindset, and then apply it with her own moral vision.
Her resilience transforms adversity into wisdom. That's a great way to put it. And Robb Stark fits the tragic side of this group, balancing strategy with loyalty. He represents the weight of responsibility and, tragically, the fatal consequences of youthful idealism when that rigid moral code fails to account for necessary compromises.
And finally, within the INFJ category, there's Melisandre. She is guided by these strong convictions, deep spiritual insights. She's acting upon her perceived destiny. The sources argue she perfectly illustrates the tension between destiny, belief, and ethical responsibility.
Showing how faith and vision can shape choices, sometimes leading to horrific yet sincerely justified actions.
Exactly.
Now for the negotiators. Marguerite Tyrell, the ENFJ, is so charismatic and strategic. She uses her social intelligence and charm to maneuver, balancing diplomacy and ambition. She's the ultimate social architect.
She really is. And finally, Theon Greyjoy, the ISFP, the adventurer. He is sensitive, impulsive, emotionally driven, constantly torn between conflicting loyalties. His journey is a deep dive into the human capacity for error, guilt, and the quest for self-understanding under just immense pressure. He reminds us that not every archetype is built for power. Some are built for identity and the intense experience of the moment.
Okay, let's unpack this monumental collection of characters one last time. The sheer variety of archetypes that survive, succeed, or tragically fail confirms one thing, and this is drawn directly from the sources. Success in this realm isn't defined by a single heroic trait. It's defined by how well a specific personality structure, whether it's the architectural strategy of an ENTJ or the unwavering duty of an ISTJ, can be applied and adapted to an ever-changing environment.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the literary significance is clear. By using these complex psychological archetypes, the saga creates this profound study of realpolitik, of moral gray areas, and the dramatic, often terrible consequences of power wielded without conscience. The core takeaway, I think, is that in this world, emotional incompetence is often a far greater vulnerability than military weakness.
We've seen 28 distinct paths to power or survival. We saw the ENTJ focused on rigid legacy, the ENTP focused on cynical adaptability, and the ISTJ focused on unwavering duty. But here's the provocative thought we'll leave you with, based on this deep dive. Which type of intelligence, the abstract long-term strategic foresight of the INTJ, the quick cynical pragmatism of the ENTP, or the unwavering principled duty of the ISTJ is the most fragile? Not in battle, but when tested by betrayal and the whims of fate. That's something to consider as you encounter the equally complex personalities in your own world.